Your Daily 180, 180 seconds of pure Bible study.
How do we react when life is unfair? Welcome to this, your Daily 180 Bible study. We're looking at lessons from the conversion of the Philippian jailer, and we've noticed that Paul and Silas have been beaten with rods. They've been thrown in prison. Their feet have been placed in the stocks. I want you just to think for a minute what it must have been like to be beaten with rods. Oh, it must have, their backs must have looked horrible. And there must have been great pain, physical pain. And if you can imagine what would be the typical response, you can imagine maybe some moaning and groaning, maybe curse words, maybe cussing those that would have inflicted this pain, and talking about how unfair that it was. But I want you to look at verse number 25 of Acts chapter 16. But at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. What? Now notice this. Notice the serendipity of this. And the prisoners were listening to them. Isn't that amazing? The prisoners were listening to them. You see, had they been just like everybody else, moaning and groaning and griping and using foul language? We hear that all the time. But here are a couple of guys who have been beaten, thrown in prison, have their feet placed in the stocks, and they're singing and praying. That's so odd. What's the lesson for us? When you have been unjustly beaten and unjustly imprisoned, the response should be that of prayer and praise. And you say, well, that's not fair. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, I haven't been beaten lately, haven't been in prison lately, but I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of folks listening to this right now that they feel like they've taken some blows, undeserved blows. Maybe your boss came in and said, I know you've worked here for 30 years, but we can't afford you anymore. You're out of here. Maybe your spouse has come to you and said, I don't love you anymore. I'm leaving. Maybe the doctor has uttered those horrible words, you have cancer. How do we deal with those moments where it seems so unfair? If we follow the example of Paul and Silas, we pray and we sing praises to God. Join us again tomorrow for your Daily 180.